This was, at times we have to make a defense of something that we've done. And so I looked up some of those that have been made in the past, and I found this one. A jury in New Jersey found that a man accused of killing his former son-in-law was not too overweight to have committed the crime. Edward Atz, the Florida man whose attorney used an obesity defense in his month-long murder trial, was found guilty today on murder and weapons charges after 2 days of deliberation. H weighed nearly 300 pounds, was 5'8". In 2006, he drove from his Florida home to New Jersey, where he shot and killed Paul Dunsack. But the defense attorney told the court that H is not physically capable of pulling off the crime, citing the fact that he had a long drive and he would have to walk upstairs where he would have to climb and kill the person. And the lawyers say, you look at him. You don't need to hear this from a doctor. The charges against him were first-degree murder, and he was punished up to 20 years in prison. Now, I thought first-degree murder got worse than that, but 20 years in prison. The judge in the case revoked H's bail and set a sentencing date for December 17th. H's morbid obesity caused asthma, sleep apnea, and other obesity-related ailments. Lesenvich said he added that H was a longtime smoker. Dunsack was shot once in the leg at an upward angle before the shooter bounded up 4 stairs and fired several more highly accurate and fatal shots. H's doctor testified that running up those stairs would have taken a toll on a man his size, likely causing his hands to shake, making firing a gun extremely difficult. He also testified there's no way he could have driven 21 hours straight. He could go up 4 steps, but could he then maintain the pistol straight and not miss? That's a tough shot. It was not more than 4 feet away. I try to get a good defense sometimes when I do wrong, but that one just kind of surprised me. You got 4 feet away, you're shaking. I think I could hit, I've never shot a pistol. I think I could hit somebody from 4 feet away, regardless of how much I'd done before that. Really believe I could have. But Peter is telling us in 1 Peter chapter 3 that we're to be prepared to give an answer for the hope that is within us. Let me see if I can get this slide thing out and start using it now. This is what we talked about last week, that we're constantly being watched. And Peter says, here's some strange defenses. I've already told that one. I didn't go over this one. I'm just wanting to save time. 6 military men one time left their base and went out because the Ouija board said that Jesus was coming, and they went out to find him. They're still out there in Arizona somewhere. He hasn't come back yet, but that was supposed to be within 3 to 4 years. So I guess that one's over as well too. Be prepared. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect. That Greek word for reason. Give you the reason. Let's see if I have it on this. Well, it's the Greek word apologia, which makes our English word apologetics, which means a reasoned defense. When you hear the word apologetics spoken in Christian terms, you're speaking about not "I'm so sorry," but you're speaking of here's a reasoned defense for what I believe, for what I treasure in my life. It's a legal term that was used whenever clients were on trial and you had a reasoned defense that this person is not guilty. And I know that works because I have watched Ben Matlock and Perry Mason all my life. And they have never failed. That's why I suggest you get one of them if you need it. So, this apology, it is this legal term that I want you to come into a court of law. I want you to be able to come into a court of law, and I want you to be able to give people a good reason for why you hope in Jesus Christ. That's a pretty big challenge, isn't it, in some ways? But then in some ways it's not. Why do you believe a man from Nazareth, poor man from Nazareth, he's the one you have hope in? There's a number of things that we could say. Basically, at this point, remember that back in the days of the writers, they didn't have a theory of evolution. They didn't have all these different ideas that have been dreamed up in years of 100, 200 years. They had what they knew to be true based on their experience, based on how things came about. So I want to take just a minute. It just so happens that I was blessed to be able to study apologetics as my major. And I want to just give you a little bit of information. This is not anything you couldn't have found on your own. We'll always be prepared to give a good reason for the hope. Evolution versus creation. This is science. The probability of producing all the necessary protein needed to service a minimally complex cell is 10 to the 164th power, multiplied by itself 250 times, which turns out to be 1 out of 10 to the 41,000th power. You know how many numbers are involved in that? There are a in the zeros. It would be 1 out of a trillion, 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 trillion chance that this could have come about in those ways. Another way is to say the probability of finding a functional protein by chance is, again, trillion, 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 trillion times smaller than the odds of finding a single specified particle among all the particles of the universe. So let's just go take a needle, go out to the haystack in the barn, throw a little needle in there, mix it all up, and walk in and find it the first time you walked in and looked. Probably not going to happen. And then let's just think a minute about the deity of Jesus. Of the prophecies made and fulfilled about Jesus, of about 300, depending on, being specific, somewhere around 300, there's 40 individuals who wrote this book over a period of 1,600 years. Most of them did not have contact with each other. They couldn't pull their stories together. They had to write them and hope that they fit everybody else's. By inspiration, we know that could happen. But 27 of those prophecies were fulfilled in one day about Jesus. 27. Dr. Peter Stoner gave this information. Conservatively, over 30 prophecies over 1,600 years, and authors, 40 authors, unable to collaborate their predictions. 27 prophecies were fulfilled in Isaiah. Stoner says take 8 prophecies out of just 61, there's about 300, concerning the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus is calculated to 1 in 10 to the 17th power. 17 zeros. Again, into the trillions, into the trillions, into the trillions. Example. Let's see if we can figure out how this would look. Get you a bag, well, I don't know, a trailer, I don't know what it would be, full of quarters. And mark one of them with a little red mark. And then go to the state of Texas and lay them down 2 upon each other all over the state. You don't know where you put the one, somebody else put it down, you don't know where it is. And now you're to go and you're to find where that is on your first chance. Possibilities? Not very good. But that's what it would be. 1 out of 100. No, I can't say what that is. I can't count over 10 or so I have to quit there. Then think about the resurrection of Jesus. The tomb itself, in Matthew chapter 27, verse 22 and 26. Think about it from that standpoint. We sometimes get this information incorrect because, well, that's incorrect written, but it's sealed, which was a soft, moldable substance, probably clay, and it's imprinted with a Roman seal. He said, guard it. I want you to guard it. I want you to seal it. I want you to do everything that you possibly can and see anything happen after this. So they guarded, the guards that they set up were a squad of guards, at least, at minimum, made up 16 to 20 soldiers in squads of 4. When 4 were watching, the other 16 would be sleeping, but they're able to get up any second. Peter was in prison himself, guarded by 4 squads of 4. So imagine what Jesus was guarded with in the tomb, when everything depended upon whether Jesus would come out of that grave, like you said. This is the kind of picture we usually see about the guarding of the tomb. And you see how many soldiers? 2. We may see 4 on some occasions. But I think it's worth knowing that it is beyond any doubt that there was at least 16 to 20 there. And I don't know if I could prove anything further than that, but I know there were 16 to 20 guards there. So Peter is telling us, I want you to give a defense. In connection with the creation of the universe or the making of this universe, I got to study the teleological argument. That's the argument from design. Cosmological argument talks about the earth coming into existence. How did it get here? Teleological argument talks about how it is designed. Where did all that come from? John Stevens in 1985 said, it would take a minimum of 100 years of the Cray computer. The Cray computer in 1985 was the most advanced computer they had ever made. It could do more than anything could ever do. And it would take a minimum of 100 years of the Cray computer time to simulate what takes place in your eyes many times every second. Isn't that amazing? Many times every second, this takes place in our eyes. And the best that we can do with human intelligence, which is smarter than what they had if you argue evolution. I mean, there wasn't any real intelligence. It would take 100 years for that computer to figure that out. And we see it just like that in our eyes. The eye itself, I think, is a good defense. And then let's just go back to what Peter is probably talking about in this passage. Excuse me for getting off a little bit. But Peter's probably talking in this passage your own personal story. When someone comes up and wants to know, why do you have so much hope in this Jesus Christ? We are to be always, passage says, always prepared to give a reason, an answer for that. Always. Now, I'm not suggesting that that means we know everything about science, as I've tried to share a little bit, but it does mean that we know about the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. We know who he is. We know about the prophecies. We know about those things. And we can tell people about the hope that we have within us because of what we know about Jesus Christ. Who is he? And many people do not know. Who is this person that you have such a hope for your eternal life found in him? But Peter goes on from this to say, when you give this defense, there are a couple of guidelines I want to give you. I want you to do it with gentleness and respect. Brothers and sisters, I think so it's just my thinking. I think there are too many times when people seek to give an answer about Jesus Christ that they do it other than with gentleness and with respect. I don't know, maybe you've seen different. But in the many times that I've been able to witness something like that in sometimes public debates and things, I'm afraid it wasn't that gentle. I'm afraid it wasn't that respectful of the person you're talking to. And I believe that's what he's talking about in this case. I want you to do this. Why are you willing to suffer so much? Gentleness. It can be translated mildness, humbleness, meekness. It is an outward display of your inward confidence. If I'm really confident about what I'm going to say, I probably don't have to get all out of order to say it. Matter of fact, the study's been done. I think I've got this later, but let me go ahead and say it now. That if you're questioned about something, if you cannot do it with confidence, if you cannot answer with confidence and respect, you're probably lying. Think about the arguments you've heard or been in. And sometimes we get those voices raised up pretty high, don't we? Probably not too confident that we're really right. Or how dare you ask me that? You know I'm always right. Do it with gentleness and respect. Do this with fear, with reverence, respect, honor. We also fear, Peter says, how we engage with other people as we seek to give an answer. Why do you believe in Jesus? I don't know that the words, "you must be stupid," should come out of our mouth at a time like that. I can't believe that you're so dumb that you don't know anything like this. Peter said, look, we ought to be able to give a reason, an answer. But when you do, respect this person that you're talking to. Do it with respect. Do it with some mildness and gentleness. I said a while ago, the survey was done, or another survey was done that said, if you were asked by someone and told, or if you were told by someone that someone wants to share with you the story of Jesus Christ, and they promise to do it with respect and gentleness, would you be willing to listen? And the answer was 8 out of 10 said yes. Now, I don't know if that would be in the next 10 we come up that they would want to do that or not, but that was their study. So there's something about feeling so deeply inside of our lives that this is so true, that instead of responding in some kind of belligerent way, we respectfully, gracefully, meekly share the story of Jesus Christ. Our goal is not trying to win an argument. Our goal is to win a soul. And I'm afraid at times I have been more concerned about winning an argument. I just want to go away from here making them realize how wrong they are. Very idea to question somebody like me. Peter then says, I want you to be clean when you do this. Keep a clear conscience so that those who speak maliciously against your good behavior in Christ may be ashamed of their slander. So now we're giving an answer. We're trying to do it clearly with respect, gentleness. But he said at the same time, make sure you're clean spiritually. Keep a clear conscience. Your conscience is not telling you over and over and over again about the wrongs that you do constantly. The conscience is nothing more than, well, let me just tell you about Pinocchio. The Professor Jiminy Cricket always said, let your conscience be your guide. He was the first to have said that, Professor Jiminy Cricket in Pinocchio. So our conscience is to be cleaned, and in doing that, we're talking about someone like Paul, who 4 times it's going to say in Scripture that when he had to deal with questions, when he had to deal with what he's doing, with what he's been teaching, Paul looked straight at the Sanhedrin and said, my brothers, I have fulfilled my duty to God in all good conscience to this day. Great statement, isn't it? Even when he was doing wrong, he had a good conscience. He thought he was doing right, but he did it in good conscience. So the conscience has to be educated a little bit correctly, right? To Ananias the high priest, Paul says, so I strive always to keep my conscience clear before God and man. To Festus, I have done nothing wrong against the Jewish law or against the temple or against Caesar. Nothing. Corinthians, I care very little if I'm judged by you or by any human court. I don't care. You want to judge me? Judge me. I do not even judge myself. My conscience is clear, but that does not make me innocent. It is the Lord who judges me. So if our conscience isn't clearly taught, we could be told everything we're doing is right when it's not. So Paul makes a statement, look, my conscience is clear, but God's my judge. As far as I know, I'm not doing anything wrong. A huge statement that I think every one of us in here want to be able to make and probably can make at this point. So when people are speaking maliciously about us, we want to respond in such a way that they become ashamed of the way they dealt with us. We want to respond in such a way or act in such a way that when they walk away, they say, I probably shouldn't have done it like that. Shouldn't have said all those things. So, as a matter of fact, again, if Matlock and Perry Mason can get everybody off with a clean conscience, we can feel innocent before people about our belief and our faith in Jesus Christ. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness. And Peter is writing to some people who are going to be persecuted. You're blessed. You're blessed if you're persecuted because of righteousness. You are part of the kingdom of heaven. You're blessed when people insult you. I've been insulted once or twice. Persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice. Hot dog, I just got persecuted. He hit me over the head. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. You remember the stories of Peter and others who, when they were persecuted, as we just saw the passage just a while ago, just went away rejoicing that they found worthy to be persecuted. Acts chapter 4, Acts chapter 12 are places you would find that. So Peter says to us earlier in this book, I want you to live such good lives among the pagans, that though they accuse you of wrongdoing, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits. On the day he visits. Only day I know of that would fit this at the time he wrote it would be his second coming, but Peter might have had something else in mind. But wouldn't it be amazing on the second coming if there are people who did not come to a point of faith in Jesus, that they could look at you and say, he tried to tell me. She tried to tell me. It was true. Give a defense. Harvard study done some time ago said that the more we say, I said this I think a while ago, the more we say something to argue that does not come out in a clean way, the more they think we're guilty. And then finally, Peter says, be assured. Be assured. It is better, if it is God's will, to suffer for doing good than for doing evil. Well, I got that. If I'm going to suffer, I don't want it to be because of evil, because I deserve it. I get you on this one, Peter. But if it's God's will that I suffer for doing good, that's so much better. It's even better, because I'm at least living enough like Jesus Christ that people can see that in me. And in some way, even though it infuriates them, I can walk away from that persecution like Peter and the other 11 did in Acts 4, rejoicing after I'd gotten beaten. I am enough like Jesus Christ that people can see that. Max Lucado wrote a book called The Applause of Heaven. And in this book, he based it upon the Beatitudes in Matthew chapter 5. And basically, in each of the chapters, he says, blessed are you, God applauds you because of your faithful service to him, for your faithfulness, even if it puts your life on the line. That book is worth reading, if anybody would like to do so, just over the Beatitudes. You are blessed if you're enough like Jesus that people are saying these kind of things about you. So Peter's whole section today, as far as my focus on it, has been, I want you to be prepared to give an answer. When you do it, I want you to do it gracefully, gently, respect people. I want you to be a person who lives like Jesus so that you have a clean conscience. It's going to be hard to defend something when your conscience is pretty bad off. But I want you to be ready to give this answer. And at times we're going to need to be sharpshooters rather than grenade launchers. At times we need to think about who is this person I'm talking with and direct our thoughts to that person kindly, respectfully, rather than throwing everything we can over somebody to make them feel like a fool. So, we're being watched constantly. Everywhere we go, we're being watched. Bible classes now start for the time. I'll be in the back if anyone wants to come and think and pray about anything. We'd love to talk with you.